Welcome to Indigo Star 2. Your learning intention for this star is to identify positive and negative fractions on a number line. Your success criteria are: I can identify a positive and negative fraction, and I can identify and explain where a positive and negative fraction goes on a number line. Before we get into our learning, we will cover some terminology that will be used during this video. A positive number is any number that is bigger than 0. Therefore, on the number line, this is why positive numbers are after the 0. A negative number is any number that is less than 0. Therefore, on the number line, this is why negative numbers are before the 0. Fractions are an equal unit of a whole. Therefore, they cannot be referred to as an integer, as integers are any whole number. Now that we've covered off our terminology, let's have a look as to how we place positive fractions on a number line. In the image below is a number line that has both negative and positive integers on it. To place the fractions we have below on the number line, we must first look at the denominator. Do the numbers or the fractions have a common denominator? Yes, fourths. Okay, so now we know that in order to place the fractions on the number line, we must split the space between the 0 and the 1 into 4 equal parts. Now that we've sliced our 4 equal parts, we can now place the fraction on the number line, as you can see in the image. It's important to ensure that we place lines to create equal parts in the space between two integers. It's also important to not rely on placing the amount of lines to represent the denominator in this space, as this will be incorrect. It will give us one more equal part than what's needed. Let's have a look at completing the same process, but with negative fractions. In the image, we've already placed the equal parts between the integers. What denominator will we be using, do you think? Fifths will be our denominator. To place -2/5 and -7/5 on the number line, we will need to create the space between the integers -1 and -2, and also between -2 and -3 to represent the equal parts. We have to do this to the two spaces, as the fraction -7/5 is more than the integer -1. So we have placed the next integer section into fifths. We will now place the fractions on the number line. -2/5 goes where the 1 arrow is pointing to, and -7/5 goes where the number 2 arrow is pointing. We can also recognize that the fraction -7/5 can also be represented as a mixed fraction, which would be -1 and 2/5. Therefore, we just placed a mixed number on the number line too. Let's have a quick recap. Remember, negative fractions go on the number line before the 0, and positive fractions go on the number line after the 0. A fraction cannot be an integer because it isn't a whole number. And when we are dividing the space between two integers on a number line, remember they must be equal parts, and you shouldn't use the amount of lines to match the denominator.
Created using Powtoon.